Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Jody Almond. Jody Almond is a pastor of over 20 years, a number one Amazon bestselling author for his book Going All In: Finding Success Through Surrender, which is also nominated as the top 10 finalist for a global award in 2020. Jody is the founder and CEO of Solution, Solution Ministries, where he helps Christian entrepreneurs and faith-based people by providing them tech processes, social media optimizations, plus business and personal success tools to empower growth and overcome limiting beliefs, and replacing them with identifying unique purpose and path to success. Jody is also a founding member of the Young Entrepreneurs Project and an inspirational and motivational speaker. Welcome to the podcast, Jody.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's so great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So just so people can get to know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. So I am a husband of over 25 years, 26 now. Don't tell her I wasn't sure, but 26 now, and a father of two, grandfather of two, and have been a pastor for over 20 years in the ministry. And now in the last couple years have expanded that into pastorpreneurship, right? So I'm not only a full-time pastor, but I do entrepreneurship. And really, as you just read, I help people find their ticket to success in personal life and professional life, and do that through all those areas you just mentioned. And, wrote the book, and just a lot of great things happening in life right now, even amid COVID, great things are happening. So, I did, share this with you, Kimberly. I suffered from dyslexia as a child, so I never dreamed of writing a book. But then it's just something I felt I needed to do. And I'm so glad I did. It's allowed me to reach the world literally. I've talked to people from around the globe and helped them. And so it's been such a blessing. And I'm just excited to continue sharing and pouring into people.
Mhm. Beautiful. So, um, when you were growing up, did you decide then that you were going to be a pastor, or how did you get into that?
That's funny. Because actually, when I was around 8 years old, I found my faith. I know that's really young, but I did. I found faith at 8 years old. And then somewhere around fourth grade, they had career day. And of course, Johnny wanted to be a fireman, Brian wanted to be a policeman, Susie wanted to be a nurse, the common things. When they got to me, and I look back now and I still don't really know why, but when they said, Jody, what do you want to be? I said, I want to be a preacher. And, I look back, and the only conclusion I can draw is that undoubtedly that seed had planted in me somewhere from a higher power, that was my purpose in life. And so, to answer your question bluntly, yeah, I guess I did. Even though I didn't stay on that trajectory path throughout my life, it was there. It was inside of me.
Mhm. Yeah, and you sent me a copy of your book, so thank you. And
Yes.
like I was telling you, I read it in one sitting, so wonderful book. But you talk about, working and going into some small communities, and talk about being a pastor in a small town.
Yeah, it's different, I guess. I've never been in a big metropolis or huge city to pastor, but I was sharing this with someone the other day. Billy Graham was quoted once as saying that he felt like when he arrived at the pearly gates and all the awards are being given out, that probably the pastor who pastored 30 people for 30 years in a little small community would receive a greater reward than he. And he said, because it takes such a devotedness and a heart to do that. And, I don't know what it's like, at least at this stage, to be like Billy Graham and have hundreds of thousands of people, on board and all those things. But I can tell you, as a small town pastor, it's really almost like a missionary is the way I view it, because in the different communities that I have ministered, it's so different, right? It's like the cultures within America in different communities become different. And so I think you have to just learn the culture, learn the lingo, learn their ways, and do your best to minister to the group of people you're called to at that time. And that's what it's been like for me in the different positions of pastoring and the different places that I've been, is just trying to help people reach them where they're at, so to speak.
Mhm. Yeah. And then as you were pastoring these um, families, what part or what role did your wife play in that? Was it a
Wow.
co-working type of situation, or how did that work?
Yeah, it has been, Kimberly. It's actually been one of those deals where we've always seemed to coexist in ministry, and her heart has always been for children's ministry. So even the church I currently pastor at, when we first came to be pastors of the church, they didn't really have anything for children. So guess what? One of the first things we implemented was a children's ministry, and
Mhm.
actually got notarized in our public paper and all this stuff for what we had done within that, confine. But the thing is that we, it's just a crucial part of who she is. And even now, virtually, she's working, as the administrator over our children's ministry and making sure everything functions and flows and happens. And so she's always been an integral part. And our kids have played a role up until, my oldest daughter is older now with a family of her own. And so she isn't as much involved. My youngest daughter helps in the children's ministry. And so my children have always seemed to play a part into it. It's kind of been a family affair and a family calling. And I think for most pastors, their wife or their children do come alongside in some fashion to help out in the ministry.
Mhm. And you said you found your faith at, 8 years old. Did you grow up in a Christian family?
I did. I was fortunate to. And that's not saying if somebody did, they're unfortunate. I'm just saying from my viewpoint, it was something I was blessed to have, was a good Christian home growing up. My parents, raised us understanding our faith, taking us to church. The thing was, even if there were times when my parents didn't go to church, I had grandparents that lived right beside me that would take us to church. And so it was always something that was very, um, this might not be the right word. I'm thinking ingrained. I don't want that to sound bad, but it's something that was always put into our life, always placed there for us to understand that it was a vital part of my parents' upbringing. So therefore, they transitioned that to, this is what we believe and why. It was never forced. It was never coerced. It was always chosen. I mean, they never like, you have to be a Christian. They would express that was their desire for us, and we would choose from there. But I grew up in church, and for the majority of my life have been in church. But there's been my seasons where I wasn't, of course, and I do discuss some of that in the book. But there's been those seasons in my life where I did not attend church or even live out my faith, really. I kind of floundered some in my faith.
Mhm. And if someone is in search right now, they're in search, they know that they want or need a higher power in their life, where would you tell them to start?
I would tell them to start with, because of my faith, and I know everybody believes their faith is right, correct? So because of my faith, I have to go back to my faith, because I believe that my faith is very strong, and it's where it's based. And so I would tell them to start, really, though, with anybody, Kimberly, with an introspection. I mean, do
Mm.
you believe? And I think that my belief is, I even think that people who say they don't believe. They
Mhm.
just don't want to acknowledge they believe. Uh, because you hear them and you see them say things. I've had people that say they didn't believe, but yet when tragedy strikes, they reach out to me and say, "Hey, would you pray for this situation?"
Mhm.
And I don't, I'm not the guy that says, "Well, I thought you didn't believe." I'm like, "Absolutely, I'll pray."
Mhm.
And even to the fact of, I've stood beside the bedside of a practicing Buddhist, and had a very in-depth conversation with them as they had found out they had cancer and didn't have long to live. And in discussing, not arguing, discussing our faith and our views of faith, and asking her, could I pray with her? On the bed that day, she come to a realization that maybe her faith wasn't what she thought it was. And she come over to my faith that day. And, um, so I just think that you have to do that introspection and say, there's got to be something bigger than me out there, and as you're looking for that, I think two questions that everybody on planet Earth have asked themselves at some point, if they're adults, is why am I here? And what is my purpose? And if there is nothing bigger than me, then I don't even have to worry about those two questions. But if there's something bigger than me, which draws those questions out of me, in my opinion, Kimberly, then I should start seeking the answer to those questions.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. So a lot of my show is actually based on people finding their passion, their purpose, and living it, because I believe when you are actually doing what you were meant to do, it doesn't seem like work.
No.
You just feel fulfilled 24/7. You have joy. You are excited about life. And so as I'm bringing guests on, such as yourself and people from all different walks of life, the idea is to spark someone's interest. Okay.
Sure.
So this person might resonate with this other person, and this person would resonate with someone else. So I know you work in that same area with people.
Right.
So how do you get people started in finding that piece?
Again, I do some deep dive, into the soul of the person. And I have a program that I use, but I also do one-on-one coaching, and in some of that, and in speaking, here's the thing, is that nobody that I've spoken with so far, unless I've worked with them or they've worked with somebody else. When the book released, I shared this in multiple venues and stages, and shared it with people. And I would ask the question, how many of you here are 100% certain that your created purpose and you're flowing in that? Raise your hand. And Kimberly, the crazy part was, from youth groups and high school students of, 12 years old, 13 years old, all the way up to a 97-year-old person said, I'm not sure. And I got responses such as, well, I know I'm supposed to be a husband or a wife or a father or mother, or, I'm supposed to be a Christian. I'm supposed to, have faith. I'm supposed to read my Bible. I know that's my purpose. And I'm like, no, those are things we do. Those are labels, or those are titles we're giving. What is your purpose? What is the legacy you're going to leave behind on this earth that'll make a difference? What is that? What were you created to become? And as I share that with people, so often you see the same glazed look in their eye and the same dumbfounded look on their face. And you can tell they're really thinking, and they're trying to think, do I know? And the problem is, Kimberly, again, as a pastor, I think I get a unique perspective sometimes, because I have stood by the bedside of so many people that are passing. And look, if there's one thing we can all say is for certain, we don't all have to pay taxes, but we do all have to die. It's inevitable. And we're all going to face death. And so as I've sat by the bedside and stood by the bedside and tried to console people and tried to comfort people, so far in my life, I have never had a person tell me, I'm finished. I've done everything I was created to do, and I'm ready to go. Now, I've had people say, I'm not scared of dying, but most of the time what I hear is regrets. And I've made the decision for myself, Kimberly, that I want to do two things. I want to die knowing I lived up to my maximum potential, and I want to die empty. What I mean by empty is I don't want anything left in the tank. I want to share it with the world. And I feel like that's what Paul did in the Bible when they was getting ready to martyr him, and he was a martyr. He basically said, in a nutshell, my time has come and I'm ready to die. I'm finished. I have run my race. I have finished my course. That's what I want to be able to say when my time comes. And I don't know when I'll die, but I can tell you I'm not ready to die today. A lot of people are ready to die and get out of this world. I'm not ready to die. I want to live as long as God will let me live and give as much as God will let me give, because in doing so, I'm leaving behind a legacy. I don't want to just find success, Kimberly. I want to be significant. I want to be significant to the world.
Yeah. And I think most people really do want to be significant, but they're afraid to step out.
Sure.
And be that powerful person.
Sure. Hence the title, Going All In.
Yes. 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 Here's the book. Going
Hence the
all
title.
in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just the way I look at it. I've done a lot of things in life, and I've always tried to have that mentality. Like, let's go all in, let's do this. If we're going to do it, let's do it. I dated my wife for 1 month, Kimberly, and I asked her to marry me.
Wow.
It's been 26 years ago, 1 month. But I guess it's my personality type. It's just, when I know something, I'm ready to go with it. Let's go. And I know there's a lot of people who aren't that way, but again, think about this. The reason they don't is because of fear of failure. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Fear of failure. Again, if we go back to what I just stated, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. So you can either say, I died and I tried, or I died and I never attempted. And the thing is that I hear most of the time, again, I hear I should have, I could have, and I would have. But I've changed my narrative to be I did. And you don't know till you try, and you may fail, but get up and try again. What's the worst? I mean, you tried. That's better than the majority of the world's population at over 7 billion. They're not even trying. So the fact that you tried says so much about you. And I understand that concept because, again, I never thought of myself as writing a book. I fought it for 8 years. Don't write this book. Nobody wants to read anything you've got to write. You don't even want to read it yourself because you don't like to read. You'd rather watch a movie or listen to a song. And so, I fought that. I had to break through my limiting beliefs. But you know what happened? As you alluded to, it became a #1 Amazon bestseller in the first day, stayed there for 5 days, and then was nominated for a global award. I would have never dreamed. I mean, just honestly, but I would have never known had I not tried. And so I think we have to just get out of our own way, get out of our own head. And as we do that, we can break through those limiting beliefs as we begin to get traction and get those things moving in our life.
And sometimes I think it's just taking a step forward, because there's different seasons in life. And when I look back over my life, I have 3 kids in their 20s and a 2-year-old granddaughter. And as I look back, and sometimes I'm going in this direction. I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if this is the right direction. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. But it's the challenges that I went through and the wins that made me be able to do what I'm doing now. If I didn't go through those. So I might have thought that I was off purpose. I might have thought, what the heck am I doing? I mean, I'm trying to stay on purpose, but am I? So when you ask that crowd of people, well, are you on purpose? I can understand why they would be unsure, because, you have an idea of what your purpose is, but sometimes it just seems so far off too. It's like, okay, I see this thing. It seems way too big and too far off. So how do I make it real so I can actually keep going in that direction and be encouraged and motivated to go in that direction?
Well, let me say this. Again, I can only come from my belief system, right? I can't teach you anybody else's. But based off what you just said, let me reply this way. First of all, I believe that God has 2 wills. He has a perfect will and he has a permissive will. Take you back to the garden for just a quick minute. Let me give you a quick Bible lesson. In God's perfect will, it was that mankind would live in perfect harmony with God on the earth for eternity. There wouldn't be any death. There would be no curse. There would be no disease and death and no COVID-19 and none of this stuff. But in his permissive will, he permitted them to have the choice to decide which tree they would eat from. The reason I share that is because I know a lot of the actions and detours I took in my life weren't necessarily God's perfect will, but it was his permissive will. But here's the catch. For people of his faith, the Bible says in Romans 8:28 that we now know that all things work together for good to them who love the Lord. And here's the catch. People stop there and are called according to his purpose. Not your purpose, not the world's purpose, but the reason he created you. And so when you're in his creation process, even as I share in the book with Abraham, even as Abraham got completely off course, it blows my mind, Kimberly, how can you go to Egypt and lie and say that this woman is not your wife and she almost ends up in the harem of Pharaoh, and or she does end up there, but it almost ends up worse, and you end up leaving with riches? How does that work? Because even though he got off track, all things were working together for his good because he was still in purpose and still going toward the purpose in a direction that even though he ran in the famine, even though he didn't stay in faith and ran, the thing is that God was still working his purpose for him. And so for somebody that says I'm off track, I don't, and I know for me, if I get off track, I start getting those nudges. I begin to know something's not right. I'm off track. And so I think, again, you have to do an introspection and you have to begin to say, what is your purpose for my life? What is your will? What do I do in this season? Because I'm just like you, Kimberly. I look at our life as a huge puzzle that God is putting together piece by piece. And I don't know the next piece, right? I mean, I know some things that I feel are coming, but I've not seen it. I've not seen the next piece fall into place, but I can promise you when he drops it, I'll know that piece is in place. And it's like, now this begins to make more sense. And so alluding to what you said, when I'm able to share with people some of the paths and the journeys I took that weren't in God's perfect will, in my opinion, he does use it for his benefit. When I'm able to talk to somebody about some of the mistakes I've made in my life, the wrong turns I've made on the highway to heaven, in some of that, it allows me the opportunity to share with them and get down on their level. Not that I'm any better, but eyeball to eyeball, and say, I understand you. I relate to you. And I want you to know it can get better. And so I see God use it all the time, that I can help so many people, even out of the foolish, faithless mistakes I've made in my life.
Mm-hmm. And as you're talking, I was thinking about sometimes God has something for us and he's ready for us to step into it, but we don't have the maturity or maybe even the confidence to step into it. But it's like, here's your next thing. And you look at it and go, oh, I can't, how can I'm not gonna be able to do that. You're going from your little, what you know about yourself from the past. You're not thinking about the power that you have behind you from God.
Sure. And here's, again, I hope you don't mind, but I'm just going to keep going to what I know to teach. And with me, that was true. That kid that suffered with dyslexia, God knew I would write a book if I would be willing to. Right. And again, we have those choices. And I do believe that even myself, Kimberly, I think that there's probably a lot of opportunities that I've allowed to pass me by. As a matter of fact, I know they are. I was at a conference a couple years ago. It's been about 5 years ago now. And in that conference, it's been about 3 years ago. In that conference, I felt like something that was said spurned my imagination and my thought process, and I should write this book. Well, of course, then little boy Jody spoke up and said, you can't write a book. Who do you think you can't even read right. You can't speak right. All these things started flooding my mind, and I'm unqualified and inadequate and all these things. And do you know what? John Maxwell happened to be at that conference. And within a year, John Maxwell wrote a book on the very same topic that I felt I needed to write a book on. And for me, God downloaded into my spirit, Jody, if you won't do it, John will.
Mhm.
And so when this opportunity popped into my spirit to write this book, it made me move a little faster.
Mhm.
It made me move a little faster because I realized, even though I might not have sold as many copies as John did, I realized that I still missed an opportunity. And you say, yeah, but you could have went back and wrote it. I could have, but it felt like it wasn't right. The season had passed, just like it's winter where I live right now. And you're not going to go out and find gardens. You're not going to find fruit on trees. You know, the thing is that season has passed. And so you have to wait till the next season comes along. And I think sometimes we allow seasons to pass. And I've heard as long as I've been alive, and I reject this statement that if it's God's will, it'll happen. You know what? It will, but it might happen without you. And so don't think that if God wants it to happen, he's going to force it upon you. That's not the God I serve. He doesn't, he's a gentleman. He never kicks in the door and ties me up and says, you're going to do this. But I think so often we do get in our own way. And, you know, when you understand that you have a calling, a name, a purpose in life that you don't even see. You don't even see yet. God told David he was a king, but David didn't step into his kingship for years. But yet David began to believe like a king, and that's how he went out and slayed the giant everybody else was cowering from. When you begin to see yourself the way your creator sees you, then you can really walk in true purpose and power and passion. And I love what you said, and I agree with that. And that's what I help people find. There's a lot of people who find success in their corporate world, their business, their job. Some others don't find success there, but they find it in their family. But I try to help people find what you said is fulfillment across every aspect of their life. And that is true living. That is truly having an abundant life.
Mhm. Yeah. So how did you get into working with entrepreneurs from pastor to working with entrepreneurs?
The book, you know, it was funny because as I wrote the book, to make it a short story, I was planning to self-publish again, one of those moments where an opportunity falls. I had an opportunity fall in my lap to publish, and instead of reaching my small community, I could reach globally. And there's always been this yearning inside of me, is the right word I think would use, yearning inside of me that I would be on a world platform somehow. I didn't know how that would happen. I thought it may be my charisma because I've always had some charisma. So I thought it may be my charisma or something like that. But instead it was this book. And I, again, think about it. God will take the things I'm weak in and use it for strength, or the foolish things and confound the wise. And I shouldn't be known worldwide. I shouldn't be talking to people and helping them in their business or their life in Australia and Africa and, you know, all these places, Europe. And as I'm doing that in Canada, and I'm like, this is crazy. You know, I mean, this came from a book, but after I wrote the book, I began to say, what is the next step? I mean, the book is good, but where do I go from here? And I feel like the book lays a decent foundation to help you understand the concept of what it says in the title, finding success through surrender. But now, how do you do that? How do you do that? And so before the book was published, I began the idea and the thought process, I'm going to create a program. And from the program, it kind of evolved into, I'm going to do some one-on-one coaching. And then from there to, this is basically what I do. So I've taken, as you've shared in my bio, my real strengths, the things that I'm passionate about, I'm good at, I'm gifted in, such as helping entrepreneurs with tech. A lot of people are great at talking about their subject, but how to get it out to the world, they have no idea. Well, I'm pretty gifted in that area. So I'm able to help people with that, you know, finding their purpose. A lot of entrepreneurs have no idea what their purpose is. So being able to say, let's take a step back, let's hone in on what you're really created to do. Let's figure that out. And then you can really enjoy this journey. And so being able to take those aspects of entrepreneurship and pastorship and things I've been doing for years with people and pull them together is a unique gift that I've been given, and I just want to empower as many people. My goal is to empower don't let nobody's jaw drop, but my goal, my vision is to empower 5 million people before I leave this earth. And I know that sounds ridiculously crazy, but I figure dream big or go home, go all in. So
Yeah, yeah, I so agree. And um, as you're working with people, have you ever found people who decided that their purpose was something totally different than what they're doing? Or is it
yeah,
always aligned?
absolutely. I've gotten I've got a lady I'm working with right now. She's in her 50s, and she has just truly in the last 9 months understood why she's here. And I know people's like, at 50, why not just give up? I mean, one foot in the grave, whatever, but 50 is not that old. I'm really close. And so, the thing is that, but she's discovered really why she's here, and she's doing a complete shift in her life because she's so excited about what the future holds for her. And, I'm just excited it's exciting to be a part of that journey and to help her not only discover her purpose and define her purpose, but develop it and learn to diversify it. And so that's what I help people do. And she wasn't an entrepreneur coming in.
Yeah.
She worked for her family business and, did all this amidst COVID because the business got shut down. So there's again God working for her good, and because COVID, she made the resources happen, made it happen to be a part of this program, and now she's in the process of changing everything she's done in her life to now go, and she's going to become a coach and empower people with the knowledge that she has, and she's got the giftings to do that. And so I'm excited to see where her future lies in all of this and the people she'll help. So yes, I have seen those people that realize, have that aha moment that, man, I'm not fulfilled. I want to be fulfilled. I want to do what I was created to do and die without those regrets. So it's very rewarding to see that, or even just to empower the entrepreneur to learn how to optimize Facebook for their business and they start getting business from it. Whatever it is, it's so exciting to know that every day I wake up, I'm excited to wake up out of the bed. And when I go to bed at night, I'm fulfilled knowing I've made a difference in somebody's life. I'll do that today. And I do that every day. And how much greater does it get than that?
Beautiful. And, as I'm thinking about that combination you have of, nurturing the spirit but then, helping in the, what you call mundane,
Yeah.
the earthly things. And I have a friend who coaches very high level executives. And she said, there's a lot of little girls and little boys running corporations because they're up there, they look like they know what they're doing, they're successful, the money's coming in, but their spirits,
Yeah.
they're just, they need the nurture, they need the love, they need something, and they could be so successful but be so unhappy. So as you were speaking about, what's happening now and we're looking for our new normal,
Right.
what can people do to nurture their spirits, to nurture, you know, to love that little girl or boy, but to grow into that mature adult and nurture that spirit within them?
Sure. And Kimberly, it's funny because that's the reason I called the business I do, where I do my coaching and written the book through and just everything I do, right? That's why I called it Solution, because to every problem in life, we're looking for a solution.
Mm-hmm.
But what if the real issue is we need to go deeper and find a solution? And that's exactly speaking to what you just said. And when we can look good on the outside. As a matter of fact, this is something, you know, a great teacher said one time. He said, your cup looks really nice on the outside, but on the inside, it's filthy.
Mm-hmm.
And, the thing is that a lot of times we are so corrupt on the inside. We're so just affected on the inside by trauma sometimes. Sometimes it's not even our choosing. I mean, we've been traumatized as children or abused as children or whatever that is. And even though we try to cover that up with whatever, it still has an effect on us, because until you get rid of whatever that is on the inside, it's always going to play a role in the external. But if you can get whole on the internal, the external begins to take care of itself. And that's your mind, your soul, your spirit. And so as you begin to do that, that is a big part of what I do. The funny thing is, some of the people that I've worked with strictly on an entrepreneurial level, I mean, they know who I am, they know what I'm about. It seems that the conversation so often will turn and they'll start, sharing life with me. And I don't prod it. It just happens. And, we end up praying together. Um, my clients, I don't push it, but I ask, hey, I'm a person of faith and I want to pray for your success. Can I pray for you? And I've had so many wipe tears from their eyes when we're finished. And they're like, thank you. I mean, I've never had that happen before. And so I think that, for just to answer your question bluntly, what people can do, I think they have to begin, you know, um, addressing the real issue. I mean, most of us know what's broken. And, I'm a firm believer, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it, but do fix what's broken. And I know sometimes we think, and I teach this in part of my program, and you alluded to it earlier, Kimberly, is that I call them pain points. Sometimes the most painful moments of our life will strongly tie into our purpose, because we're so passionate about it, and it's so relevant. We can relate to people that God uses that. And I think there's a scripture that says something along the lines of, he'll take our ashes and turn them to beauty. And that's what happens, is that he takes the struggles we went through, and let's face it, we persevered. We're alive. We're here. If we go through surgery, even though it hurts and we feel near death through this major surgery maybe we've had, that wound is there for, a little bit, but then it turns into a scar. And that scar reminds us that I made it. It didn't kill me. I overcame it. And I think so many of us have internal scars, or maybe even wounds, that need to be healed so they can turn to scars, so that we can look at ourselves and say, I didn't die. It didn't kill me. And what didn't kill me makes me stronger. Now, how can I use this to empower other people, or to impact the world, or to share influential advice, whatever? And I believe so many of us have that ability, but so often we don't go to it because it's not healed. And when it's not healed, it hurts and it can't help. And so until we get over the hurt of things we've done, things have been done to us, whatever that scenario and that story is for us, we can't really begin to heal anybody else until we're healed ourselves.
Yeah, beautiful. So if people wanted to actually work with you or get your book, or how do they connect with you? You had several things you had sent me on the notes, but how do people connect with you?
Okay. So just to simplify everything, you can go to Solution Ministries, again, SOUL, like a Kia Soul, the car you drive around, or the new movie out by Disney, Soul, right? So you can go to solutionministries.com, S as in ministries.com. You can find out a ton of information there. I actually give a free 30-minute strategy call to anybody that wants to book one. You can go to that page where it says schedule, and schedule a free 30-minute Zoom call with me, and I'll jump on and we'll see how, you could benefit from what I offer. And if not, then I'll find somebody that can benefit you. You can also find the book on there. You can find all the resources on there. I'm also on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those major platforms. You can find me there, and you can look me up either by my name, or you can go to my author page at Jody Almond Going All In, or the business page at Solution Ministries there on Facebook. So I'm all over the place. I'm on YouTube. You can find me pretty much anywhere you can find most people. you can find me. I haven't got into TikTok yet, but you know, you can find me on all those platforms. But yeah, if anybody's looking to discover their purpose, define their purpose, develop and diversify their purpose, and maybe, they're not even thinking about that. They just want to know their purpose. But I do believe once you find it, you do want to flow in the realm of your purpose, even in career. Why would you do something that's completely off base? You want to turn that into some form of what you do for a living. And so that's what I help people do. And if they want to do that, I'd love to make them one of the 5 million people I'm going to empower before I leave this earth.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for your wisdom. And I know you hit people's hearts with your message. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate it. And you've been such a gracious podcast host, and I appreciate the opportunity. And I know your listeners glean so much wisdom from what you share. So thank you.
Yes. So I have one last question before we complete.
Sure.
What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Well, not to be redundant, but figure out why you're here. I mean, because it's hard. There's always that nagging question and that unfulfillment. If you're not walking and living in your purpose, it's such a takeaway from who you could really be and what you were meant to do. I mean, consider this, and I share this analogy and I'll be finished. But if I walked into the room and let's say, Kimberly, you created the fork, the eating utensil, and I walked into the room and I had one in my hand and you see me scratching my back with it, right? Now, can it work for that? Absolutely. Or maybe I'm combing my hair with it. Can it work for that? Absolutely. But you're going to be looking at me as the creator of that thing, and you're going to say, wait a minute, you're not using it for its creative purpose. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you don't know how good this feels. I mean, my back was really itching. Or don't you see how clean the lines are in my hair? Do you see this? But you're going to be like, I'm not saying it can't be demonstrated or used for that, but that's not the reason I created that. And can I tell you why? You see, the only reason I can know why is because I've connected to the creator. And the creator taught me what the purpose of a thing was. And the sun shines every day, Kimberly, because it was created to shine. Mm-hmm. Are we shining or are we not shining? And the only reason you can shine is if you know your creative purpose. And I want everybody to shine and give light to the world in their creative way. And so without doing that, you can't live your abundant, fulfilled, exciting, all those analogies life. And you're going to leave the world in one of two ways. Either, as I shared, like Paul saying, I did all I could do and I'm ready. I'm done. I'm finished. I'm just done. There's nothing left in me. Or you're going to pass like the majority of people I've been beside the bed of, and it's going to be, I wish I would have, I could have, and I probably should have. I don't really want to go. I mean, there's so much left I want to do and I should have done. And I want to stop that. I want to be beside the bedside of people who know they've made a significant impact on the world. And so I would say, simply learn your purpose, discover it. You're never too old. Abraham was 100 when he fulfilled his purpose. You're never too old. And so that's my parting words of wisdom.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jody.
Thank you.
Yep. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Have a great day.